I want to give you a pop quiz. Oh, no. No, I said there'd be a test. How many kids killed by school fire in all of America in the last 60 years? Total kids killed in school fire, America, 60 years. Anybody? 0. It was 61 years ago in Chicago was the last time any American kid was killed by school fire. So how many kids killed by school violence? Well, we got a DOJ report tells us in the 97-98 school year, we had 57 dead by violence and 250,000 serious injuries, violence in the schools. How many killed by fire that year? 0. Well, you see, in the 06-07 school year, we had a new record dead by violence. 63 dead by violence in the school. How many killed by fire that year? 0. And folks, we don't have the official report on last year yet. It takes a while. There was 17 dead in the Parkland School Massacre, with 10 dead in the Santa Fe, Texas Massacre, with twosies and threesies across America. Everybody believes last year was a new record dead by violence in our schools. And what they do as children today predicts what they're going to do as adults in the years to come. In the meanwhile, how many killed by fire? 0. So y'all help me assign a grade. Everybody here, teach your head on. Help me assign a grade. What kind of grade do the firefighter for keeping kids safe from fire? Even the cops reluctantly give the firefighter an A. Oh, the cops always mumble, yeah. Dang firefighters, they sleep till they're hungry and eat till they're tired. Yeah. Repeat as necessary. You know we're teasing. And they walk in the door and they get an A. So what kind of grade do we get for violence? What's our violence grade? Nobody gets an F anymore. How about needs improvement? We say, Johnny, why can't you be like little Jimmy firefighter? He's our A student. Denial, denial, denial. I just need you to understand, folks, you look at the ceiling up there, you see the fire sprinklers up there and the smoke alarms. The insulation material is code selected fireproof material. Drop you on down to the old fire exit sign. That ain't any fire exit sign. That's a battery backup when the world ends. It'll still be lit, fire exit sign. Now the wall boards are code selected material. That's fireproof, fire retardant material. There's some exposed wood up here. You can bet your bottom dollar it's been treated with some kind of fire retardant material. The concrete slab foundation and feet, the carpet you're sitting on are code selected because they're fireproof, fire retardant material. There is not one blessed thing in this room that we're in. You see, we have fire sprinklers, fire exits, fire alarms, fire trucks, fire drills, fire hydrants, smoke alarms. This fire guy's crazy. Half the cost of a modern building goes into fire code. Fireproof material for the structure of the building versus the cheapest alternative. Fireproof material for interior furnishings versus the cheapest alternative. Fire sprinkler system under pressure for the lifetime of the building. Electrical system brought up to fire code. Double the electrical system to run wiring to every fire exit, every fire alarm. We're not even getting started on the fire alarm and that network of wirings that go from every fire alarm to the fire guy. We're not even taking into account the fire hydrants and that huge system of pipes that runs through our whole civilization. And meanwhile, what have we done to prepare for violence? If we really want to keep our kids safe from violence, and this is not my school safety class, but if we really wanted to protect our children from violence, we'd have that interlocking, overlapping layers of protection. Do you understand? And we've got to. And that's not the goal of today's class, but the goal right now is about living our lives in condition yellow. Living our lives in a world where no violence can happen and we're to deal with it. And all my cops out there, my cops, want to ask you a question. Are there things worse than death? I'll tell you what's worse than death. To have your loved ones die and stand there without your gun. Tell me you wouldn't live the rest of your life in hell. I'm a cop. I'd rather walk out that door naked and alone than be at my loved ones without the tools to protect them. Beat me, whip me, strip me, kick me out the door naked before I'll be with my grandchildren without the tools to protect them, because there are things worse than death. You understand? And I'm telling you, if you're not carrying that gun off duty, you're not doing your part in this war. The kids overseas are fighting the dying. You see, in America, we're the only nation on the planet that our military cannot get involved on American soil. The Posse Comitatus Act. We're the only people in the world that play by that rule. Our military cannot get involved, with the exception of the National Guard and the Coast Guard, and they ain't showing up no time soon. We've given the mission over here to our cops and need to be ready. We need to live our lives in condition yellow. I admit these kids have been in this war for 17 years. It was early on in the war. I turned in the first batch of spec ops headed off to Afghanistan. Y'all remember what it was like a month after 9/11? The World Trade Center was still smoldering rubble. We're still estimating 4,000 dead. Remember those days? I turned in the first batch headed off to Afghanistan, and they believe in what they're doing. And 4 years into the war, ain't nobody been drafted in this war. Everybody's enlisted or re-enlisted in time to go to war. And a young Special Forces sergeant, a young Green Beret, came up to me. He said, "Colonel, we're going to Afghanistan. We're going to do our job." He said, "Well, while we're there, you tell those cops you teach, don't let them come kill my kids. Don't let those bastards come hurt my family while I'm over there." And those troops believe in what they're doing. And I admit I'm biased. My son's a Spec Ops warrior with 9 combat tours. My boy came home early from his 3rd combat tour, just in time to be there as his first baby was born, our 3rd grandchild. I told him it's good to be there when the baby's born, yeah? It's even better to be there when the baby's conceived. Little piece of hard-earned Arkansas wisdom for you there, eh? You know what's best of all? For that baby to have a safe and free nation and grow up in. That's what her daddy's fighting for. So all I'm telling you is, folks, we got to be on our end over here, and we got to live our lives what I call condition yellow. Something bad happens, you're not stunned, you're not surprised, you're ready. And what's that look like? All of us, keep our back to the wall. See something, say something. That really is important. We see things aren't right. We're all on the same team out there, and get the word out there, and keep your, and you cops, you carry the life-saving tools of your profession, but live intensely in the moment. Hold your loved one's hand, but keep your gun hand free. Yeah. In the academies today, nationwide, they're putting a ban on the non-firing hand. And throughout the academy, they pick a thing up with a gun hand, they just start doing push-ups, yeah. My dad was a cop. He got a gun in a badge for a lifetime. Always had his back to the wall. And Mom and Dad, they had that kind of romance they make movies about. They just hung together across all those years and all those crazy times. And Mom died about 20 years ago in her sleep. Never woke up. I know she'd want to go that way. Dad died about a year after that, sitting in his chair, holding his beer. Never spilled his beer. I think he wouldn't want to go that way. I miss them both awful bad. I'd give just about anything for another 20 minutes with them. Well, Dad bought 20 extra years one day in a supermarket. It was 40-odd years ago. They're holding hands. They come around the corner. There's an unhappy customer. Most cops got an unhappy customer out there somewhere. The guy draws a gun and declares his intention to harm 2 most precious people on the planet. They're holding hands, but his gun hand was free. Always had a lightning draw. Mom locks down, but his gun hand's free. Sides up in front of Mom, draws a weapon, and the situation was satisfactorily resolved. Nobody died that day. They thought he caught a sheep, and he found a sheepdog, and he wasn't prepared for it. He talked him down, and he was arrested. I almost lost them both that day. Their grandchildren will never know their grandma and grandpa, except their grandpa prepared for a lifetime for that one day. But when we live our lives in condition yellow to prepare for a lifetime, we see a fire exit, we see a fire extinguisher. In the same way, to whatever way it's legal and lawful and appropriate, we prepare for violence. And the photograph, the cover of National Geographic magazine a while back was a photograph of a baby. It said, "This baby will live to be 120 years old." No baloney. They believe a baby born today will have average life expectancy of 120 years. If somebody murders one of my grandchildren, they have stolen 100 years from that child. Can we walk the walk for a lifetime for that one day? And I'm not saying we're all carrying guns, but we keep our back to the wall. We know where that exit is. We have a plan, and we prepare for violence like the firefighter prepares for fire. And how much more so in our schools and our daycares, which is a whole other topic that we're not touching on today. All right, so we live our lives in condition yellow, but let's study what happens in this, the toxic realm of panic and condition black. And first and foremost, and this is the most important part, cognitive processing deteriorates. That's a fancy way of saying you stop thinking. I'm going to put a model up here. We're going to come back to this model for the rest of the day. When we talk about PTSD, we'll come back to this model. We do our final exam, we'll come back to this model. So tune in. We're going to take your brain and divide it into 2 parts. We got what we call the forebrain. Inside the forebrain goes everything that makes us human. What are the things that happen in your head that will never happen in your dog's head? Let's call it rational thought. Rational thought. Lying underneath the forebrain, part of me going to call the midbrain or the mammalian brain. Just get you oriented. Here's our little beady bloodshot eye looking out this way. Inside the midbrain goes everything every living creature has in common. What do you, your dog, the bacteria in your body have in common? Or forgive me, there's a joke. A classical joke in this 1950s psychophysiology textbook, a recent sort of modern textbook. The function of the midbrain can be thought of as the 4 F's. The 4 F's are fight, flee, food, and reproduction. Every living creature does these 4 things. You, your dog, the bacteria in your body are capable of these 4 things. Now, the interaction between the 4 is fascinating. And we've hit the point in the day where the goal is to forewarn you and forearm you about things that happen in these life and death events and help you know that they're normal. You know, there's things that people won't talk about, but they know me, they trust me, I ask questions, they get a depth of information. My fire guys tell me, FDNY brings me out a couple times a year for a big conference they do year after year, and other fire, and they tell me it's a brutal, desperate 4-alarm fire. Finally got the fire out, finally get home at the end of the shift, and EMS tell me, I trained 300 EMS in Maine a while back, and said we got a 3-car pileup, we're scrambling and saving lives and doing our job, and finally get home at the end of the shift, and cops say knock down, drag out fight, cuffed them and stuffed them. Finally get home at the end of the shift, and cops say gunfight, bad guys down, I'm alive. Finally get home and it's all over, and they all say some of the best sex I've had in months. Both partners, there's a powerful drive to reproduction in the face of death. And both partners are invested in some very intense sex. Nothing wrong if it doesn't happen. People expect that. Well, you may not get it up for a while. Nothing wrong if it does happen. Is it the affirmation of life in the face of death? Is it a hormonal surge? I don't know. I just know it's very common and it scares people. Now, not a whole lot of perks that come with this job. You find one, relax, and enjoy it. Off duty, wait. It'll still be there, I promise, yeah? So it's all about being forewarned and forearmed. And the reason why this model is so important, the heart of the matter is this. When we become angry, when we become frightened, the forebrain shuts down. And the midbrain, the part of the brain, same as your dog, reaches up and hijacks the forebrain, and there's no rational thought of that person's head. Have you ever tried to have an argument or a discussion with a truly angry, frightened person? You can't do it. The more angry, the more frightened, the less rational they become. You know why you can't have an intelligent conversation with a frightened, angry person? Because there's nobody home. You're trying to argue with their dog through the mail slot. There's nobody home with the dog. Give it up. With the human being, we got to calm them down first. How do we calm somebody down? Well, you know, folks, I was a West Point psych professor, and the top psych minds and the top military minds put their heads together and said, what do we want every West Point officer to know about this psychology stuff? And this is kind of the top of the list. We're going to take your body, divide your body into 2 parts. We got the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, this is sometimes known as fight or flight. And this is sometimes known as rest and digest. And we told our West Point cadets, think of your body like a military unit. These are all the cooks and clerks and bakers and mechanics doing maintenance. And these are the guys in the front lines with a rifle. Now, when you're asleep at night, your unit's on stand down, right? You don't have a guard at the front gate. You're in maintenance mode. We're doing barracks maintenance, motor pool. You wake up in the morning, you hit what we call homeostasis. Got some guys in the front lines with the rifle. The maintenance guys are doing their job. You go to bed at night, you're back on stand down, you wake up, you rock along, and somebody tries to kill you. Boom, total sympathetic nervous system arousal. Digestion, we don't need no stinking digestion, blow the ballast. And the further you go up here, the further you come down there. Napoleon said the moment of greatest vulnerability is immediately after victory. The moment of greatest vulnerability is immediately after victory. Why? You let your guard down. But it's more than just letting your guard down, it's a hormonal crash. All right, so folks, in a nutshell, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, every time you remember it, you relive it. You talk about it, and all of a sudden you're going on this roller coaster ride again. And the path to healing is to remember it without reliving it. So how do we stop somebody going on that roller coaster ride? There's a couple of different things we can do. I mentioned a few right up front. Starting in 1988, I was interviewing World War II vets and Vietnam vets by the hundreds, presenting to reunions, conducting interviews and surveys. And I had this World War II vet, this Vietnam vet, talking about combat. And I knew if they started becoming emotional, something counterproductive was happening. I'd make them stop and take a breath and regain control. Today, we put a bottle of water in front of them. And whenever they start to lose it, they stop, take a big swig of water. Study what you do, take a swig of water. You take a big swig, you take a breath in, you hold it, you let it out. You cannot take a big swig of water without taking a breath. And it sends a powerful message to the body. It sends a rest and digest message. A deer's being chased by a wolf. Does he stop and get a drink? He's really thirsty. I can't get a drink. I'm being chased by a wolf. But the fact that you take a drink sends a message to that puppy inside. We're safe. We got time for a drink. A cop, we're using this a lot. A cop sent me an email and said, Dave, he says, I'm in a high-speed pursuit. He said, I key the mic, and I hear Mickey Mouse come over the radio. He said, I knew I had a problem. Had a bottle of water right there. Big swig of water, key the mic, fighter pilot comes over the radio from that point on. I was at International Critical Incident Stress Management Conference in Baltimore just a little while back. And one of the key things is our debriefings, these critical incident debriefings. But we're adding a new nugget to it. We put a bottle of water in front of everybody. And as they talk about what happened, anytime they become emotional, they stop, take a big swig of water, and separate the memory from the emotions at the very beginning. A friend of mine, I just had the honor to work with some of her people. She works at the national level with some of our feds. And she was talking to me about that bottle of water. She said, now, does the doc who treats you gunshot wound after been shot, what do you think? You've been shot? You can't treat my gunshot wound. Can we all agree that's crazy? Well, the shrink who helped you, whatever happened, does not have to have been where you are to help, huh? You'd have been, I am, you can't help me. That's a cop-out. That's a pity party. This lady is truly one of the greats in the field, and she told me, 14 years of practice, 6 years of college, and that stupid bottle of water is doing more good than anything I've ever done. We talk about what happened, you're gonna lose it, big swig of water. So say you're getting a witness statement from a victim of a crime. If that individual starts to become emotional, what they talk about what happened, A, you don't need all that drama, but B, they're moving down the path of mental illness. So beginning to associate that memory with emotions. But put a bottle of water in front of them. Just the power of a gift. Put a bottle of water in front of them. And every time they start to become emotional, make them stop, take a big swig of water. A, you're getting that calm, rational state they need. B, you send them down the path of mental wellness. From the very beginning, you're teaching them to separate the memory from the emotions. All right? So just understand that. We're taking it a step further now. They brought me out to Alaska to train the Air Force Pararescue Squadron up there. And the pararescue, PJ Master Sergeant, my host up there, he told me his wife was an emergency room psychiatrist. And she told him about something that's just sweeping through the medical community. If you got a meth head or a crackhead turn up the emergency room, you know what they do? They grab a bag of M&Ms, they rip it open, shove his face. Would you like some M&Ms? And completely defuse the situation. He said, I'm just your typical cynical guy. I said, sure. He said, I didn't buy it. This kind of guy carries a gun off duty, kind of guy you want to. High-level spec ops, lots of training. He said, 2 different times I thought I was going to have to draw my gun and fight for our lives. Both times my wife reaches in her purse, grabs a bag of M&Ms, rips it open, shoves his face. Would you like some M&Ms? And completely defuse the situation. He said, now it's one thing when a pretty girl does it. I'm still not so sure it worked for me. It's good to have plan B back here. But the power of food to calm people down, to kick that rest and digest into gear. So one more case, they were just kind of pushing the envelope with all this. Just a couple of months ago, a cop came up and gave me an example of a case study. And he brought his partner with him to vouch for the story. So the story is so wild, he brought his partner with him to vouch for the story. Naked guy in the front yard screaming and throwing things. Now naked guys, there's probably something wrong here. Yeah? Very often, what you're looking at is excited delirium. Now, the body goes into overdrive. They're capable of great feats of strength. And they run a temperature. They're hot. The reason why they're naked is because they're hot. And they take their clothes off. If you have a naked guy die on you, you get a body temperature. If that individual's running a temp, something happened there and it wasn't you that did it. You understand? So a naked guy in the front yard, was it excited to learn? We don't know. Screaming and shouting and the parents on the porch saying, don't shoot our kid, don't shoot our kid. And he said, I happen to have a Snickers bar in my hand. I thought, what the hell? I said, hey buddy, you want a Snickers bar? Huh? You want a Snickers bar? Huh? Would you like a Snickers bar? Yeah. Follow me up to your room. Follow me to your room. I'll give you a Snickers bar. Let him up in the room, hand him the bar. Was that excited to learn? Would it work again? We don't know. It's one of those kind of what do you got to lose kind of things. Just remember the power of food to calm people down, to take them from fight or flight to rest and digest. But how do we not go on that roller coaster ride in the first place? Oh, well, we're going to talk about that in a minute. That's important. We're coming there. But let's look at a couple other things that are happening up here in Condition Black. We got loss of peripheral vision, loss of depth perception, loss of near vision. You're losing fine motor control. Is it really any surprise? One place fine motor control goes is your eyes. Here's where it gets really interesting. Auditory exclusion. For the vast majority of people in combat, the shots, the sounds can get muted. Now, how many hunters we got here? We've got a lot of hunters. We're in a good country. Hunters, help me out. Yeah. Y'all ever notice something? Take your hunting rifle to the range. Fire one shot at the range without hearing protection, your ears are going to ring. You go to shoot a deer. It's a still, calm morning. Boom! People a mile away hear the shot. Hunter! What do you hear? Nothing. Some people hear pop. Most people hear nothing, and your ears don't ring. How many? Come on, help. I see it nod your head. How many experience that? Sure, come on, help me out. Yeah, that's the response to shooting a deer. How much more so if the deer were shooting back? The shots get muted in combat, and you need to know. So it was early on, 22 years ago, I first started doing this, and a state trooper came up to me and said, now I understand. He said, it's so embarrassing. Now I understand. He said, me and my partner on a one-car roadblock. This guy blows the roadblock 100 miles an hour. We both fire a shot. We leap out of the way. I get ready. I call the sergeant. Sarge, he's blowing the roadblock. Sergeant says, pursue. Sarge, we can't pursue. Why not? We got bad ammo. They could barely hear their shots. They thought there was something wrong with their ammo. Now think about this. 500 years of gunpowder combat. And 2 state troopers failed to pursue a fleeing felon. Because after 5 stinking centuries of gunpowder combat, nobody warned them what to expect. So why are we just not learning this stuff? A, because we're getting pushed so hard. Remember, a record number of U.S. Marshals one year murdered, the next year no Marshals murdered? Look, folks, we got to get better and better and smarter every day, or we pay a terrible price. But B, you can't learn this stuff in peacetime. Shame on us. We've been in the world these years. We ain't learned nothing. So I want to show you what I think are the 2 most important things we have learned in 17 years of war. Number 1, and this is huge. If it works in the Olympics, if it works in the Super Bowl, it works when somebody's trying to kill you. Now, folks, I was a West Point psych professor early 1990s. They said, you are smart guys, hand-selected, brand new shiny degrees. Give us smart stuff. Give us the latest stuff. We'll get it right up to the generals. We said, look at all this performance psychology. Look at this sports psychology. We got to use this stuff in combat. The generals, older, wiser heads, had a good answer. No. Just because it works on some stupid game doesn't mean it works when somebody's trying to kill you. A lot of people say, that sports stuff goes out the window. Somebody's trying to kill you. We didn't know. But folks, in 17 going on 18 years of war, we have systematically experimented. And we can tell you it works. If it works in the Olympics, it works in the Super Bowl, it works when somebody's trying to kill you. This is huge. This means we can strip mine the multi-trillion-dollar field of performance psychology and apply it to our first responders. One of my books is Warrior Mindset. And the guy who did all the heavy lifting on this book is Dr. Mike Askins, Pennsylvania State Police psychologist, also one of our nation's leading trainers of pro ball teams, Olympic athletes, especially in the realm of mental toughness skills. How does that football team in the 4th quarter, 2 touchdowns behind, how do they suck it up and drive on? Mental toughness skills. But folks, I've got another book here I want to share with you. And it's an amazing book. It is really pretty much the best book I read in 30 years. Oh, says right there. Best book I read in 30 years. Yeah. Now, folks, this is a pretty amazing book. A husband and wife team, Secrets of Mental Marksmanship. They're both world championship shooters. He's a combat vet. They're law enforcement trainers. They're hunters and hunting guides. You could use this for your kid's soccer team. You could use this for any area of human endeavor. But for every aspect of performance psychology, they give a police example, a military example, a competition example, and a hunting example. Just makes it come alive. All right, so we got this dynamic of performance psychology, but the other thing we've learned in all these years is the incredible value of stress inoculation. Inoculate. If I want to inoculate you against a disease, what I got to do? Expose you to that disease in a controlled manner, the real thing comes back, will not kill you. If I want to inoculate you against a stressor, what do I have to do? Expose you to that stress. Now, folks, if you're a firefighter, you got to face Wilburn-Yowie fire at some point in your training, right? Can we all agree you cannot train a firefighter for a lifetime with flickering red lights, a fan, and some red tissue paper, yeah? So what do cops have to face? Wilburn-Yowie bullets. Now, Simunition is a brand name. There's other brands doing just as good a job. And one of the inventors of Simunition, a guy named Ken Murray. Ken wrote a book called Training at the Speed of Life. Training at the Speed of Life. It is the definitive textbook. I wrote the foreword to it on this force-on-force training. And what they do is this. The cop's holding a gun, and the bad guy's got a gun. And you pull the trigger, there's a flash and a bang. What leaves the barrel is not a chunk of lead, but a plastic marking capsule. It leaves the barrel at 350, 400 feet per second. If it hits you in the hand, does it hurt? That's good. Pain's good. Firefighter has to face Wilburn-Yowie fire. The cop's got to race for Wilburn-Yowie bullets. NYPD's 35,000 gun toters. NYPD put this force-on-force engagements, these scenario-based training, and the following year, NYPD fired half as many shots and got 10 times, or half as many shots and got twice as many hits. Twice as many hits with half as many shots. What's that tell you? The quantum leap forward in performance. Today, the state of New York says you are negligent to give anybody a firearm and not give them these force-on-force engagements. But I just want to give you a case study to make this all come alive. Orlando, Florida. A mom parks her minivan in the garage, leaves two little kids in the van, and goes in the house for a minute. Armed home invaders take mom hostage. One of the kids in the van takes mom's cell phone out of her purse, dials 911, said, "Bad guys got my mommy." Cops are responding. One of the responders is Jennifer Fulford. Deputy Jennifer Fulford told me, she said, "You know, if RoboCop shoves his head in the van, says, 'Come with me, kids,' you'll peel him off the ceiling." See, one of our female warriors says, "Come with me, kids." Good chance they will, except we bring to the table, the guys can't. So Jennifer said, "I'll go in the garage and get the kids." As Deputy Jennifer Fulford came in the garage from one direction, 3 armed home invaders came in the garage from the other direction. And the gunfight that follows, Jennifer will be shot 10 times. 3 bullets are stopped by body armor equipment. 7 bullets punched through her body. Early in the gunfight, Jennifer's right arm was disabled by a bullet. She drops gun with the right hand, picks her left hand, and kills the individual that shot her. It's only fair. Non-dominant hand, one-handed, precise accurate fire, game over. While the other one's sinking slugs in her, Jennifer does a left-handed, one-handed reload under fire and kills the other one. Third one, wisely, runs like all later surrenders. Jennifer shot to bits. 7 bullets punched through her body. 2 legs pretty much disabled, 1 arm disabled, got 1 functioning limb. Screaming kids, bleeding out and dying bad guys, gun smoke, shell cage, and the whole thing took seconds. Another cop, just second pattern, come rushing and gun in hand, said, "Jennifer, are you okay?" She said, I'm like, "No. Get me out of here." Steely calm, precise, accurate fire, left-handed, one-handed reload, Jennifer. How do you do that? Well, Jennifer was in my class a year later. She was fully recovered and back on the job a year later. She got married 6 months after the incident. She says she's a glutton for punishment. Now, folks, what's the most famous gunfight of the Old West? Wyatt Earp, OK Corral? Wyatt Earp needed Doc Holliday and 2 brothers to take out 3 bad guys at the OK Corral. Deputy Jennifer Fulford did it all by herself. Like most heroes, she's very humble. She's got a very important point. She says, "I am a product of my training. We did our paintball at force-on-force training. I was hit and hit and hit. It hurt. My trainer said, Don't you stop. We don't train you to fail. We don't give you permission to die. Keep going. They drilled me, and taking bullets and driving on. It hurt. They drilled me, and left-handed one-unit reloads. Here's the magic words. When the real thing happened, it was less stressful than the first time it happened in training. That's the definition of stress inoculation. When the real thing happened, it was less stressful than the first time I faced it in training. And so, folks, whatever the stressor is we face, we need inoculation. I'll tell you one that applies across first responders. Dead people can mess our young first responders up. Rip open a human body. What's it smell like? Blood, vomit, shit, piss, all mixed together. Hunters know that smell. Hunters, you got a game for the youngest day, it means food on the table. But there's a generation out there that's never seen, let alone smelled, what's inside a living creature. If the first time they encounter that is some horrible crime scene, some horrible accident scene, we set them up for failure. Do you understand? They have got to go to an autopsy very early on. And they've got a checklist of information they're collecting. And in a sterile clinical environment, they're exposed to the sights and smells of inside a living creature. Do you understand? That's a powerful form of stress inoculation that we can use now to inoculate our folks. But there's another one we're doing with our law enforcement. This is a unique group here. Help me out. How many people in this room have ever worn the suit, worn the sleeve, and been bit by our working dogs in training? Yeah, unusually high numbers. Folks, we're doing our most elite spec ops, our most elite medical and fire and other units are doing this as part of the training. See, it doesn't matter who you're training with, who you're sparring with. You know they're not really going to kill you. They're not going to put you in the hospital. They're not going to lose their job. They're not going to go to jail. It's a game. He's playing, you're playing. Deep in your gut, you both know that. When you're wearing that suit and that dog comes at you, you're looking right dead in the eyes of raw God. I'm going to rip your throat out and like it aggression. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I spent a lifetime chasing the rush. When that dog came in the first time, I was like, whoa, what was that? Like airborne school, parachuting out the door the first time. The next time, no big deal. That's where you want to be. Look raw, pure, animal hate in the eyes. Be completely unbothered. Cops say, I don't get bit by a dog. It's a controlled training environment. Well, we'll go back to the dog in a minute. Let's come back to that dog in just a minute. Let me forewarn you and forearm you about one last thing happening in condition black. Voiding of bladder and bowels. Voiding of bladder and bowels. If you have a load in the lower intestines, extreme survival stress, it's probably going to go. Your body says, bladder control, I don't think so. Sphincter control, we don't need no stinking sphincter control. Blow the ballast. So one major survey, World War II, approximately 20% of the veterans of intense combat in World War II would admit that they messed themselves in one time or another. About half the veterans of intense combat in World War II would admit they wet themselves in one time or another. These are the ones who would admit it. One old World War II vet told me one time, heck, Dave, all that proves 80% were what? That's what he said. It happened to him. We don't know what percent were liars. Not for us to say. Let's go with 20%, knowing the number could be higher. But let's ask two questions. Number one, why is the body doing this? 20-odd years ago, I first started work with LAPD SWAT. At that point in time, LAPD SWAT policy was try to give us 20 minutes. Okay, and of course, they're broken down. Time to go in. Here's your 20-minute warning. What do they do with that 20 minutes? They call it the battle crap. Your body will help. It's called stress diarrhea. Do it now. Later on, they were called explosive stress diarrhea. Not everybody, not every time. Most of the time, that's how the body works. You see a football team going out of the locker room, go to the game. A lot of people hitting the restroom. And well, why is the body doing this? Even if you don't lose it, you have what's called the pucker factor. The pucker factor is when one part of your body is trying to hold in, when another part of your body is trying to eject. Why is the body doing this? Well, inside every human body is a toxic waste site. It's the colon. It's like a big, long balloon full of toxic material. And if that colon is even nicked, that stuff will gush out and infect the wound. And prior to modern medication, you're dead. It's very reasonable for the body to dump that toxic waste. The Greeks used to say your bowels turn to water, and the body flushes all that toxic waste out. Instead of having a full balloon, you got a shriveled up empty balloon, much less likely to be hit, and even if it is nicked, that stuff is not leaking out. Is that not an amazing survival mechanism? Is that not astounding? And so you understand why the body's doing it. But understand this, people are devastated. Lifelong, humiliated, shattered, devastated by it. I was training emergency room personnel in service training for ER in a hospital, and one of the nurses was just, her face is growing red, and I thought, man, something's going on with this. She comes up during the break. She says, "I want to tell you my secret." I said, "What?" She said, "One time in the OR, I wet myself." Well, that's it. For her, it was devastating. She said, "I'm a nurse. I watch people every day. They all wet themselves. They usually mess themselves. It's normal, but it never occurred to me that it's normal for me as well, and it's okay." People are devastated by this. A little psychological first aid, that's your body's natural response. It happens all the time. You can literally save somebody from shame and despair by letting them know that's your body's natural response. So if it ever does happen, don't be devastated, don't be humiliated, don't be destroyed. So it happened to at least 1 out of 5 of the kids in World War II. Change your drawers and rock on. One old cop said, "Yeah, and bag it as evidence." Could you see it in court? Were you sincerely in fear for your life? Well, Exhibit A. So we're not devastated, but we'd really rather avoid it. Can we all agree on that? Yeah, everybody's got the old bucket list. And we got this in the bucket list, 7, 8, 9. Crap myself with fear. No, not on my list, not on your list. So go get a great big heaping helping of stress inoculation. The thing we got going for us, those kids in World War II didn't, is state-of-the-art stress inoculation. Go back to the dog. Wear the sleeve, get bit by that dog. If that dog's so scary, you can't do it in training. When that pit bull comes out of nowhere, locks on your leg, you will wet yourself, you will mess yourself, you will shoot yourself, you will shoot the dog, you will shoot your friends. We do not flee from our fear, we master it. The more that dog scares us, the more important it is to seek that training. Do you understand? And so, folks, we've hit the point of the day where the goal is to forewarn and forearm you. And there's something I've heard so many times that I think we're wired this way. There can be a sudden violent death. The sudden violent death of a family member. The sudden violent death of a fellow first responder. And the very first response is, whoa, that could have been me. Afterwards, you look back at yourself. I wish it was me. I would have laid my life down for that person. And my very first thought was a selfish one about myself. I've heard this so many times, I'm convinced we're wired this way for a good reason. Think about it. You're in an aircraft with a small child. The oxygen mask comes down. What do you do before you put the child's mask on? Put your mask on first. It is a fundamental law of survival. Before you can help anybody else survive, what do you have to do first? Survive yourself, yes? And the human brain, the most amazing survival machine the world has ever seen. We're wired for survival. Our fangs and our claws didn't win the fight to the top of the food chain. It was the human brain that took us at the top of the food chain. And when there's a sudden violent death, the puppy says, whoa, that could have been us. Pay attention. If that ever happens to you, I don't want you to be troubled by it. I want you to understand it is normal. It's normal. That's a word we're going to use a fair amount coming up here. We call it normalizing. And it's one of the best things that we can do, to know that these kind of things are normal. And somehow when people realize that, there's great peace in that. Yeah? All right, so folks, and one other thing. If you'd never gone home and hugged your kids and said, thank God it wasn't you, the day will probably come when you do. And that's okay too. That's how we're wired. Yeah. Well, folks, Dr. Alexis Artwell is a police psychologist in Portland, Oregon. And she surveyed 141 cops about their experiences in combat. And I want you to take a look at this, folks. What we got is some pretty interesting data. And diminished sound effect. 85% were conscious of diminished sound. But 16% intensified sound. Even old Buck Sergeant from Arkansas, I figure out that adds up to 101%. Sometimes both happens. And this is an example of the dynamics. But a cop is ambushed, and the shots are overwhelming. Boom, boom, boom. You start shooting back, the shots get quiet. Now, they are not like hunting. Hunters hear almost nothing. In a combat event, you hear the shots, but they're very muted. And sometimes you don't hear other shots. But folks, you're caught by surprise, the shots are overwhelming, you start shooting back, the shots get muted. The body will focus intensely on the sense it needs most for survival. When you start shooting back, the eyes dial in, the ears dial out. Hunters, by the way, you are still getting hearing loss. The shutout's in the nerve, the ear is still being hammered. Wear hearing protection when you hunt. You be a deaf old geezer like me, it's a pain in the rear, yeah? All right, so folks, look what else is happening up here. Now, these are the numbers that were conscious of it. The numbers could be higher, they just weren't aware of it. 80% were conscious of tunnel vision. People talk about looking through a toilet paper tube. Now, we have learned in our force-on-force engagements, it's not kill or be killed, but it's hurt or be hurt. A lot of people, when they do it the first time, their body treats it like it's real. And we have found out that a sidestep can often take you right off their radar screen. If you're with somebody under stress, if you're fighting somebody, there's a pretty good chance you have tunnel vision. And a sidestep can take you right off the radar screen. We tell our cops, every draw should have a sidestep built in. What do we got to lose? Every draw should have a sidestep built into it. At least you're a moving target. At most, you could have come right off his radar screen. All right, so look what else is happening here now. Folks, we got autopilot. People do what they do without conscious thought, very often holstering, unholstering without conscious thought. They have no idea how the gun appeared in their hands. So you do what you're trained to do, no more, no less. Be sure we train the right thing. Slow motion time. I have had hundreds of people tell me they can see the bullet in combat, and I believe them. It's like airsoft, but it's slow for you to track your eyes. I believe them. And some of the temporary paralysis is slow motion time, making it feel like forever. Here's where it gets really interesting. Half of all trained seasoned cops have memory gaps, blackouts. Now, 200 law enforcement couples in Kansas City, and a cop's wife came to me. Now, 2016 was a hard year for law enforcement. 5 dead cops in Dallas, 4 dead cops in Baton Rouge, and they were the worst year-over-year increase in cops murdered in the history of our nation. We also had bad guys going to the cops' house to murder their family. Well, Mama Bear protecting her cub can be one of the most dangerous things on the planet. Mama Bear killed the bad guy, saved her family. She told me I was messed up. She said he was eating me alive. And she said, you know what really bothered me? She said, I heard the audio recording of my 911 call, and to this day, I have no memory of making that call. He was eating me alive. And then somebody gave me a book and said, look, it's in the book. It's normal. Some of the most healing words on the planet. It's normal. Those blackouts, they're normal. But it's so much better to know about it ahead of time than to try to fill in the gaps afterwards. And 1 out of 4 cops, 22%, just flat remembered something that did not happen. Memory distortions. It was early on in the war. It was one of our Tier 1 Spec Ops medics. He said, after his first combat tour, he said, why do the wounded hallucinate so much? Remember things that aren't there, hallucinations. So folks, these last 2 items, memory gaps and memory distortions, the state of Texas passed a law last year. The cop has the right to see every video before they make their statement. Immediately after the incident, there'll be memory gaps, there'll be memory distortions, and then you make some sworn statement, you got to live with that in court. It's only common sense to see the video before you make the statement. But set aside the fact that somebody's trying to kill you. Just set aside the fact that somebody's trying to kill you. If you were sitting here right now, boom, autopilot, blackouts, hallucinations, that would meet every definition of a psychotic episode. This sometimes the cells would scare the daylights out of you. The fact that somebody's trying to kill you is bad enough without your body doing weird and one of the things nobody warned you about. But if you've been warned that might happen, then it's no big deal. A young California Highway Patrol officer, a young CHP officer, he'd been in my class, he'd been forewarned. He and his partner on a traffic stop. Bad guy murders his partner. He kills a bad guy, applies CPR on his dead partner. Don't get a whole lot more traumatic than that. But he'd been warned. He was in my class. He said, Dave, you cannot imagine how important it was in the middle of the gunfight to know that it was normal for my shots to be so muted. He said, tunnel vision like looking through a soda straw. Autopilot, holstering, unholstering without conscious thought was freaky. He said the slow motion time was real and it was freaky and it was so important to be warned. He said the memory gaps during the debriefing, those debriefings are important for many reasons. Bring the dispatcher to the debriefing. Bring your CSI people to the debriefing. Get everybody on board for those debriefings. But he said during the debriefing, people talked about things I didn't remember. And I was okay with that. And he said there were one or two things I remembered. Everybody else there said, no, man, that didn't happen. He said, if I didn't know those memory distortions could happen, I would have spent the rest of my life thinking they all conspired to lie to me about some goofy little aspect of what happened. So you see how important to be warned about what happens in the event? It's even more important to be warned about what happens after the event. We expect crazy things in the heat of battle. When crazy things come out of nowhere, they can blindside us unless we've been warned, yeah? So when you were a kid, how many times did you have to touch a hot stove? Hot stove, how many times? Just once, unless you're from Arkansas, just once. You touch that hot stove, your heart rate skyrockets, the forebrain shuts down, and the puppy blows a hole through the screen door. That little dog lives out in the front yard, punch hole the screen door, grabs you over the throat, pees in your lap, said, don't ever touch that stove again. Folks, does it work? It's called one trial learning. Whenever there's fear and pain associated with learning, a powerful neural network, a network of neurons is established. You think a neural pathway was established from touching a hot stove. How much greater it might it be from combat, all right? Arkansas State Trooper, first gunfight. Bad guy's down, he's alive. Happy ending to the story. He said, a week out of my first gunfight, I'm sitting up in the bleachers with my wife, watching our daughter at a swim meet. What do you suppose pushed this guy's button? Starter's gun went off when I didn't expect it. Boom! My heart is pounding, I'm gasping for air, I'm drenched with sweat. His wife thought he's having a heart attack. It's not a heart attack, it's called panic attack, little minor anxiety attack, basically the same thing. The puppy's coming for a visit. When he was in that gunfight, the puppy blew a heck of a hole through the screen door. He didn't touch a hot stove for a millisecond. His hand was held to the door. But what happened was a week later, a gunshot goes off, and here's the puppy saying, gunfight, gunfight, where's the gunfight, where? Now this guy had two things working against him. Number one, nobody warned him this might happen. This is not PTSD. It's normal. It can become PTSD. When the puppy comes for a visit, it scares the daylights out of you, and you try to not think about it. You will literally drive yourself crazy trying to not think about it. You got to make peace with the memory. You got to separate the memory from the emotions. And the tool we're going to use to leash in that puppy is the breathing exercise that I'm going to teach you. All right, so let me give you some case studies of people who were forewarned. I trained a Marine battalion headed to Iraq. I've trained a couple 100,000 of our troops going back and forth from the war across all these years. But one group gave me a really good feedback loop. A young Marine said, you know, we went to Iraq, you trained us, we saw a lot of combat, we came home, and was sitting and talking over beer with our buddies. Talking over beer can be pretty healthy. Whiskey's made for sipping, wine's made for sipping, beer is made for gulping. Yeah. And you're talking over beer, and you start to lose it, what do? Stop. Regain control, keep talking. Physiologically, psychologically speaking, that's a pretty good thing to do. Till you get drunk, then it gets counterproductive. I said, me and my bunch of my Marine buddies are talking over beer. And we got talking about the puppy coming for a visit. He said, one of my buddies said it happened to me, a real common one. He said, I've been home for a couple of weeks. I'm walking down a busy city sidewalk with the wife and kids. Heavy traffic in the street, cars parked by the curb, I'm by the curb, wife and kids, something backfires loud, no warning, boom. Next thing I know, I'm in the gutter, under a car. I look up, there's the wife and kids. It's okay, this is normal. Well, I warned this might happen. Let's set our Marines aside. Set the Marines aside for a minute. Another case study, almost identical. Young soldier told me, he said, I've been home for just a day or so. I'm with my little 3-year-old boy. A car backfires and boom, I hit the dirt. He said, I look up and here's my little boy. Look at me with eyes that big. I got up on my knees, put my hand on the little boy's shoulder, and said, those are called combat reflexes. He kept dead alive in combat. It'll take a while for that to go away. He said, for the next month, any loud noise, boom, the kid's hitting the dirt. All the neighbor kids, boom, they're all hitting the dirt. So go back to my Marine. Now, we laughed. He said, Marine said, we laughed. We had a swig of beer. And then he said, one of my buddies said something really important. He said, you know, if we hadn't been warned this might happen, we wouldn't be laughing. If we hadn't been warned this might happen, we wouldn't be laughing. Laughter can be cruel and laughter can be inappropriate. But most of the time, laughter is very healthy. It says this has no power over me. Laughter is very healthy. In most cases, it says this has no power over me. Do you understand? I can laugh about it. So my son comes back from his first combat tour, the invasion of Afghanistan. And he'd grown up with the stuff. I had him read Early Draft of On Combat, the book I literally gave to my boy going into the fight, the one I wrote for my kid going to the fight, the one I'd want him to have first and foremost. So he was forewarned. So he's back home on leave from his first combat tour in his old bedroom. While Big Brother's deployed, Little Brother puts a poster of Yoda on the outside of Little Brother's bedroom door. Big Brother gets in the night, goes to the bathroom and sees Yoda. Whatever reason, sees a bad guy. Goes for a gun, heart pounded, realizes it's Yoda, no big deal, uses breathing, back to bed. Next morning at breakfast, said, Dad, it happened. Puppy came for a visit, just like we talked about. Saw Yoda, saw a bad guy, heart pounding, went for my gun, used my breathing, back to bed, no big deal. He turns to Little Brother, he said, you know, while I'm home, take Yoda down. Little Brother puts Yoda in Big Brother's closet. It was sincerely funny. What's next? And we could laugh about it. And it was so good to laugh about it. But it scares the daylights out of me to think how we might respond if we haven't been warned. We can use this stuff afterwards to fill in the gaps. It's so much better to give it to people ahead of time. An ounce of vaccines worth a pound of antibiotics. You understand? We want to be vaccine. We want to forewarn and forearm people, but we also want to be able to tell people afterwards these are normal responses. This is normal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the breathing exercise. Now I've got hundreds of case studies in my files at home organized by topics. Of all the topics, the breathing has saved the most lives, has had the greatest impact. You can't always take a swig of water. You can always stop and breathe. So folks, it's not enough to teach you how to breathe. I've got to explain to you how and why the breathing works. And then you'll own it. So for our purpose right now, divide your body into two parts. The conscious and the unconscious. What kind of things in your body are not under conscious control? Heart rate, blood pressure, digestion. What do you think? You control those things? Never know if you never try. Right now, everybody give your best shot. Raise your heart rate to 180 beats per minute. Raise your blood pressure. Everybody, give us some good stress diarrhea. Ready? You wouldn't do that if you could. But those are fight or flight responses. Those are things the puppy does. Your body divides into things you control, the conscious. The thing the puppy controls, the unconscious. But what is one mechanism that could go either way? What's one that could go either way? You're breathing, sure. Your breathing right now is not under conscious control. If you had a conscious control your breathing, when you sleep, you die. But take a deep breath in through the nose. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Let it out, let it out, let it out, let it out. Hold it, hold it, hold it. What'd you just do? You pulled your breathing from unconscious to conscious control. Folks, you can control your heart rate. You can control your blood pressure if you control your breathing. For $20 on Amazon.com, a little finger clip, here's my heart rate. Sit there watching TV and hyperventilate, just fast, shallow breaths. See how high I can get it. The long, slow breaths, bring it down. Heart rate, run it up, run it down, run it up, run it down, right? So the other day I was going for a colonoscopy. That's where they shove a camera up your tail. And I'm wired for sound. I got my heart rate, got my blood pressure shot. This is so cool. Run my blood pressure up, brought it down. Run it up, brought it down. My wife is smacking me. Stop that, stop that. If I go to the dentist's office, little dental assistant take my blood pressure. It's, oh, it's all high for me. Hold on a second. Relax every muscle. Take a deep breath. Try it now. Whoa. Nobody can consciously control their blood pressure. Anybody can consciously control your blood pressure if you control your breathing. You understand why the breathing works? It's you bringing conscious control of the unconscious part of your body. It's a leash on the puppy. Now, we're using the breathing before the life and death event. LAPD, SWAT, FBI, HRT both tell me. They're stacked up outside the door. Back in all of them, they got a second, they're stacked up outside the door. And the last thing they do before they go in that door, they take that breath. And they go in that door in condition yellow, calm, competent professionals. Anything goes wrong, they can be that basketball player making a snapshot at close range to come back down again. But they go in that door too excited. Well, something goes wrong, then they're over-roused, up in condition black, right? So we use the breathing before the event, during the event. A West Virginia state trooper told me, he said, of all the hundreds of thousands of people who walk past you in a lifetime, one of them draws a gun and tries to kill you. He said, I admit, this guy caught me completely flat-footed. He just drew a gun and started shooting at me. I yanked my gun out. I'm spraying and praying. He said, the only good news is the bad guy was an even worse shot than I was. He said, I dumped a magazine, my weapon's empty, my slide lock's back, I'm completely out of control. I did exactly what I was trained to do. Went to cover, did a magazine change. You got cover, go to cover. You don't have cover, sergeants have to do a magazine change. He said, went to cover, I reloaded. I go to pop out. I thought, wait a minute, he ain't going nowhere. I got time for a free throw. I got time for a free throw. He said, all it took was one breath. Front sight, game over. He said, I accomplished more with one breath and one careful shot than spraying and praying a magazine. So we're using the breathing before the event, during the event, and when? After the event. For the rest of your life. If the puppy's coming for a visit, the anger is welling up, the fear is welling up, you now have a leash on the puppy. You must make a conscious decision to use the leash. Here's the key now. Here's the heart of it all. Controlling fear in combat, controlling fear after combat is the same skill. Just so what he warned you might have to do it. What's courage on the battlefield? Is courage the absence of fear? Oh no. Almost everybody in combat is very afraid. Anybody remember General Patton? Patton said, any man doesn't ever afraid in combat, a damn liar. Patton also said, if courage is the absence of fear, then I have never met a courageous man. Courage is controlling your fear. It breaks my heart to see brave men and women, strong men and women, who will be brave in the incident. They're blindsided later because nobody warned them they might have to be brave later. Yeah? Their breathing works in the event, their breathing works after the event. So we're going to do the breathing here, but let me make one critical point before we do it. The doc's got a whole bag full of tricks. You've got one trick, separate the member of the emotions with breathing. But if that don't work, there's other ways. And don't hesitate to get help if you need it. One of the things that they use is EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming. Sounds crazy. What happens, you follow a visual stimulus while you talk about it. And the puppy is out in the front yard chasing a ball. Puppy can just do one thing at a time. While the puppy's following that visual stimulus, you're able to talk about it without having the puppy come crawl through that hole in the screen door and pee in your lap. And just a couple of times of talking it without the puppy will sever the link between the memory and the emotions. So remember, the doc's got a bag full of tricks, but one we can give you right now that you can apply is the breathing. And remember, a big swig of water is just as good, if not better. Mom ever tell you, coach ever tell you, calm down, take a deep breath? Mom knows what she's talking about. For our purpose right now, we're going to take 3 breaths. In through the nose for 4 count, hold for 4 count, out through the lips for 4 count, hold for 4 count, again and again. Now, a couple of key points here, folks, a couple of critical points. Number 1, keep your eyes open. This is combat breathing. A lot of you have been taught breathing before, taught close your eyes. Don't close your eyes. Bad guy's still there even if we have our eyes closed, yeah? Unscrew the natural stress response. A newborn baby has got that natural stress response. The shoulders come up, the hands come up, the head goes down, pull the head back, pull the shoulders back. And when you breathe, try to fill the lungs absolutely full. For the lungs to feel absolutely full, You have to relax the stomach and let the diaphragm push it out of the way. Let that old Twinkie tumor just hang out there. Let it just hang out there, right? All right, 3 breaths. Everybody ready? Head back, shoulders back, eyes open. Here we go. In through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out through the lips. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In through the nose. Deep, deep, deep. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out through the lips. Deep, deep, deep. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out through the lips. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Simple exercise, a true revolution. And folks, attitude is contagious. Can panic be contagious? Can calm be contagious? And your job is to be the rock of calm when all about you losing theirs and blaming it on you. Yeah. Folks, they're teaching the breathing to little kids now. I'm talking 3 years old. And I was telling people about how we're doing this, and I told a class in Florida about it, and a cop came up and said, it happened to my little 4-year-old girl. He said, our little 4-year-old daughter was just getting all worked up, holding her breath, scaring us. Took her to the doc. Doc said, she'll outgrow it. She can't do any harm. I'll show you something. And what the doc did was he took a scented plastic flower. When I did with my grandkids, I just went out and plucked a flower. And I mean, we're doing this starting with kids at 3 years old. And folks, remember I told you the Dutch studied their troops in Afghanistan, 5% contracted PTSD. They studied that 5% very intensely. And they don't think it's combat doing it. They think it's a predisposing factor. And their working theory is there's people know how to ramp it up. Nobody ever taught them how to ramp it back down again. That drink of water for a kid to regain control, the breathing for kids could be very valuable. So what he did, he said, what he did with my little daughter, little 4-year-old girl, Doc's got a scented flower and a candle. And the doc models the behavior. He lights the candle, he's smelling the flower. Enjoy it. Blow out the candle. Watch the smoke. Now you do it. That fast, he's got my little 4-year-old girl breathing on command. It's so wild. He said she starts getting worked up, reminded her to breathe, and pulls her out of it. So it said, one day I'm driving in traffic, just me and my little girl, and having a bad day. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I lean out the window, screaming at this guy, waving my fist. From the back seat, I heard my daughter say, breathe, Daddy, breathe. He said, you know what? It worked. It worked. Sometimes we all need that little reminder, yeah? I remember the doc's got a whole bag full of tricks. If you can't leash that puppy in by yourself, don't hesitate, get help. No pity party, no macho man. Have confidence in your skills. Have confidence in your ability. But don't hesitate to get help if you need it. One other thing before we kind of tie things up for the day with a few nuts and bolts. Folks, you really have a puppy inside, a human brain laid on top of dog brain. You can talk to the puppy, guided visualization and self-talk. You can leash the puppy in with breathing. But how does the puppy talk to you in your dreams? It's something I call the universal warrior nightmare. The martial arts community has known about it for centuries, called the blow doesn't work, the punch doesn't work dream. The sports community has known about it for most of a century, called performance anxiety dreams. But among modern warriors, it's a dream that's almost universal. Texas Rangers, LAPD, SWAT, every single one of them has had the dream. Some version of the gun doesn't work. Bullets troop out the barrel, bullets bounce out the back, bullets have no effect. Can't find a gun, can't draw the gun. It'll be the gun, great big gun, 100-pound trigger pull, click, no bang. Now folks, my fire guys have similar dynamics where the hose isn't working, the water's not coming. We see medical having a similar thing when things aren't working. How many people in your various walks of life, how many of you have ever had some version of the it doesn't work dream? Yeah, look around you. And among those who go in harm's way, the dream is almost universal. So it's normal. But I'll tell you what it is. It's a message from the puppy that says, boss, I'm worried. And the best answer to the puppy is training. Whatever it is the body's concerned about, then you need to do some intense training. For most of our cops, it means some range work. But just understand that there is a message. The sports community If your star football receivers having that fumble dream night after night, coach, very common. Your star receivers having that fumble dream night after night. What do? Retention drills, retention drills. Stick to the ball as take it as a concern, turn it into area of confidence. So first remember that dream is normal. You can leave it at that if you want to. But at least give me a message. And the message is, I'm worried. Let's go train. All right. Well, folks, for those who fully prepared themselves, combat is not that big a deal. But one of the things that appears to be hard for people to live with is survivor guilt. When we're old and weary, it's our comrades that didn't make it the way upon us. The ultimate question, why am I alive and they're dead? And so, folks, here it is in a nutshell. Survivor guilt is not PTSD. It's grieving. It's loss. It's hard, but it's normal. In the normal cycle of life, we will all bury our parents. Is anything more normal? The parents that die before their children. Can we all agree that's normal? Almost universal? But it's hard. In most people's lives, one of the hardest things you'll ever do is to bury your parents. Is that PTSD? No, it's grieving. Does that destroy us? No. I think we're a little bit wiser people after we buried our parents. We understand how precious every life can be and how precious every minute can be, yes. And would our parents want us to be destroyed by that? No. And in these violent times, in these crazy times, is there anything more normal that who go in harm's way might lay down their life? Do we let that destroy us? No. But what I want you to realize, a couple of key concepts here. There is a bond of love among men and women who put their lives on the line together the average person cannot comprehend. Those who've been in harm's way together, there's a bond of love that it's hard for most people to even understand. Shakespeare said, we are but warriors for the working day. Our gayness and our guilt are all besmirched with rainy marching in the painful fields, but by the mass, our hearts are in the trim. We happy few, we band of brothers, and I add sisters. For he or she today that sheds their blood with me upon this day shall be my brother, shall be my sister. Be they ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle their condition. And gentlemen at home now abed shall count themselves accursed and hold their manhoods cheap, whilst any speak that fount with us upon this day. That is the bond of love among men and women who put their life on the line together. We're like family. Family bickers and squabbles and fights when the chips are down. Family will die for each other. And when a human being has stolen that life away, it can be harder to live with. The DSM, the Bible of Psychiatry and Psychology, says whenever the cause of your trauma is human in nature, the degree of trauma is usually more severe and long-lasting. You tell me now, is there a difference between these two scenarios? Scenario one, a tornado hits the house while you're gone and puts your family in the hospital. How do you feel about that one? Thank God they're alive, yeah? Scenario two, a gang breaks into the house and beats your family into the hospital. Now you feel any better? Any different? Can we all agree there's all the difference in the world? One's an act of nature, the other's an intentional malignant act by a human being. And so, folks, we know when a human being inflicts that trauma, it can be far harder to live with. The DSM, the Bible of Psychiatry and Psychology, says whenever the cause of your trauma is human in nature. That's why one serial killer can paralyze a city. Do you understand? But it's a two-way street. They modify our behavior, and you modify their behavior. You believe in who you are, and you believe in what you do when you go in harm's way. But folks, I need you to recognize the fact that there's two ways we can spin out of control. When someone steals our comrade's life away, there's two ways we can spin out of control. And so at the end of the day, we put in place justice and vengeance in life, not death. And justice and vengeance simply says this: you've sworn a solemn oath to justice, vengeance will destroy you. All the Israeli research, all the military research, all the law enforcement research tells us there's one action we cannot live with. And remember, PTSD truly can be the gift that keeps on giving. The one act most will destroy us and our loved ones is to commit a violent criminal act. Wherever we think we're avenging, whatever we think we're doing, it's not worth the price. of ourselves, our spouse, and our children. Yeah. And you know, there was a time early on in this war, training our troops going back and forth, there was a time when they talked a lot about Abu Ghraib. Remember that prison in Iraq? Remember those photographs? That was over a decade and a half ago. A generation don't remember that one. Good, let's forget that one and move on. But early in the war, some American troops abused some Iraqi prisoners and took photographs. And those photographs appeared on the cover of newspapers and magazines around the planet. Back in those days, I heard a young soldier call them the 7 idiots who lost the war for us. Well, they're still hanging there, Iraq. They lost that war. But the 7 fools did us more harm than every terrorist on the planet. Well, the photographs appeared on the cover of every newspaper or magazine in the world. So y'all listen. In a lifetime of virtual, honorable service, you'll touch thousands of lives. Positive echoes will ripple down across the generations from your lifetime of service. But in one moment of stupidity, any one of us can do more harm than every criminal put together on this day. So let it be known throughout the land. Let it be known. You don't want to play this game by the rules? Then get to hell out of our game. There's too much at stake to lose it all because one day, oh, by the way, it's now a nationally televised game. You don't have to like it, but every single thing that any one of you does will be on CNN and YouTube forever and ever. Amen. Do you understand? You don't have to like it. You got to accept it. There's cameras and umpires everywhere. Got to win this game by the rules. And remember I told you swore a solemn oath to justice? A lot of you know, Dave, we're not cops. We didn't swear an oath to justice. Yes, you did. There's another oath, an older oath, an oath we swore from our youngest days. An oath that says everything it means being American. Let me remind you of that oath. You stay seated, help me out at the key point. Y'all win. Stay seated, help me out at the key point. It went like this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and for justice for all. We do not violate an oath we took from our youngest days without paying a terrible price. Tell yourself right now, whoever think I'm avenging, whatever think I'm accomplishing, it's not worth the price. Myself, my spouse, my children, everything Americans have fought and died for, that can be harmed in one moment of stupidity. You know, a little while back, they brought me out to LA for a big boxing arena, huge auditorium, a couple thousand people on the mental side of the game, and then a meet and greet afterwards. They introduced me a young boxer, future world champion, 20 fights, undefeated. And this guy's here, he's got family there, he's got mom there. And out of nowhere, he looks at me, he said, what do you think about vengeance versus justice? I never mentioned that topic. He must have read my book. I said, I just automatically said, well, vengeance will destroy you. He said, what if justice is not doing the job? And look at this guy, and I look at mom, and mom's on the edge of tears. This kid is talking crazy talk. This kid is going to do something to destroy everything he's worked for. I looked back at him and said, yeah, but you swore an oath to justice from your youngest age. He said, what? Yeah, you swore an oath. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and, he said, justice for, he said, all. I said, you do not violate that oath you took without paying a terrible price. He said that back, word for word. Here's mom heaving a sigh of relief over here. Finally, somebody can talk sense to this kid. I think there's great value in reminding people that oath. And Life Not Death simply says this: if I give my life to save your life, don't you dare waste it. Think now while you're calm and rational. Think it through. If you were the one to die, and your loved ones and comrades are getting on with life, you're dead. Everybody you care about is getting on with their lives. What do you want for them after you're gone? Happiness and joy. The fullest, richest, best life they can have. That's what you lived and fought and died to give them, yes? Now they're the one that died and you're driving on. They're dead. You're getting on with life. What do they want for you after they're gone? The same thing. Can we all agree on that? The fullest, richest, best life you can have. That's what they lived and fought and died to give us. And that means right now you dedicate yourself to that full, rich life that was bought at such a price. And right now, confront the possibility of suicide. Chew it up and spit it out. Say, suicide? Oh, where'd that come from? I'd never eat my gun. all of our first responders lose many more to their own hand than they do to the dangers of this job. You understand? Every one of them would have sworn they'd never eat their gun. The world came unglued. They made a bad decision. Give it a chance to rethink it. So can we all agree on one thing? I think every living creature can agree on one thing. Nobody takes your life without a fight. Give me a see head nods on that one. Every living creature can agree. Nobody takes your life, including you, without a fight. Tell yourself right now, I will fight for my life. I will seek counseling. I will get medication. I will leave no rock unturned. I will fight for my life like I would fight for my child's life, because no one takes my life, including me, without a fight. Burn it in your soul. I will fight for my life. I will seek counseling. I will get medication. I will leave no rock unturned. I will fight for my life like I would fight for my child's life, because no one takes my life, including me, without a fight. Burn it into your soul. Your warrior spirit will guide you true. So we wrap up the day with the photograph we had earlier. We look at him with fresh eyes. What do we know about him? As the blood drains from the face, the blood drains from the forebrain, and there's no rational thought of that man's head. Can you accept that? Remember that. We'll come back to it. His name is Christopher Amoroso. Amoroso. Remember that. We'll come back to it. By this point, on that awful day, the smoke and the flames are so intense, they're leaping from those buildings in waves. The people there tell me the media never properly captured it. They were coming down from both towers. They were coming down from all four sides. Strangers are holding hands on the way down, comforting one another in their awful final seconds. It takes a long time to die from 90 floors up. Every second is filled with despair. The sky behind him is filled with fallen bodies. The air above him is filled with smoke and flames, and the awful sound, those bodies hitting the sidewalk, smack, 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 like somebody clapping their hands, is echoing in his ears. Now do you understand why it looks like that? What makes him different from her? What's he going to do that she's not? He's going back. 3,000 people were murdered that day. But 400 of them were going toward the danger. 300 firefighters and another 100 cops. While everybody else was running away, they were running up the steps. Oh, do you understand there's no rational thought in that man's head? Do you understand nobody told him to go? People tried to stop him from going. He's been cut, he's been burned, he's exhausted. His eyes are rolled up in his head. Everybody tried to stop him. But like a mother who rushes in a burning building to save a beloved child, Christopher Amoroso will go up that building one more time, and just the remote possibility of saving one more life. The building will fall, and Christopher Amoroso will not come home to his wife and baby tonight. They will never come home again. So why does one person go up the steps again and again and again while thousands are coming down? Because he's a sheepdog. Because that's what he's trained to do. The forebrain shuts down, the midbrain takes over, a product of our instincts, our training. All this true. But I want to give you the scientific solution to the question, why will men and women die? Think about it. How do you get someone to die? You can't order people to die. What do? Kill me if I don't do it? When no one is watching, when no one will ever know. In the heart of darkness, in the midnight of our souls, when everyone's telling you not to go. Why? Well, some people go toward their death while thousands are running away. Because he's a sheepdog. Because that's what he's trained to do. The forebrain shuts down, the midbrain takes over. You're a product of your instincts, your training. All that's true. But I want to give you the scientific solution to the question, why will men and women die? How do you get someone to die? In nature, and folks, I'm going to tie this all up in the next couple of minutes. I'll hang around afterwards. You need a book, anything else, I'll be glad to take care of you. A big hats off and hand to our hosts that made all this possible, all the hard work that's gone into it. But let's talk about why people will die. In nature, the one place where the powerful natural instinct to self-preservation is canceled out across many different species can be seen in a mama critter. Across many different species, a mama critter will die for one thing. What is it? Her babies, her young. In combat, we know if we throw a bunch of strangers front lines together, men and women don't know each other, don't care about each other. As soon as it's dark, as soon as people are dying, they're out of there. You put together a band of brothers and sisters, men and women who know and trust one another. They'll fight long and hard. Why? For each other. Audie Murphy is the most decorated American soldier of World War II. Audie Murphy was asked one time why he did it. His answer was very simple. They were killing my friends. They were killing my friends. All this research revolves around one word. Now, at the end of the day, I want us to pull that word out and embrace it. There's a book called The Gates of Fire about the Spartans at Thermopylae. Marine Corps commandants required reading The Gates of Fire. And it poses a question at the beginning of the book. What is the opposite of fear? What quenches fear as water quenches fire? And the answer? Love quenches fear as water quenches fire. The one force on this planet stronger than the instinct of self-preservation. The mama critter loves her babies more than life itself. Audie Murphy loved his fellow soldiers more than life itself. And Christopher Amoroso, he loves his fellow citizens, men and women trapped in those towers, men and women he's never met more than life itself. Now here's the crazy part, folks. The mama critter will die to save her babies. She won't die for anybody else's babies. We say in the Sheepdog Kids book, the sheep will die to protect the ones they love. Only the sheepdog loves enough to die for other people's loved ones. Only the sheepdog loves enough to die for other people's loved ones. You believe in who you are. You believe in what you do. For greater love hath no one than this. And we were not given a spirit of fear, but of love. Now here's the crazy part, folks. Absolutely blows me away. I've used this photograph of Christopher Amoroso with permission for the first decade after 9/11. Then someone told me that name Amoroso means. Amor is love. Amoroso is the lover, one who loves. Greater love is no one than this. But we wrap up the Sheepdog Kids book by saying they're not heroes because they die. They're heroes because they walk out the door every day, prepared to lay down their life. Sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. To place the welfare of others ahead of your own. To walk out the door every day of your life. To do a dirty, dangerous, thankless job to the utmost of your ability every day of your life, because you know, if nobody did it, our civilization would no longer exist. Not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. For most of us, therein lies the greatest love. And as you do that for the rest of your lives, as you go about that most virtuous and noble of all endeavors, to place your mortal body in peril daily that others may die, that others may live. As you do that, and as you stand behind and beside those who put their life on the line every day, may God bless you, your family, every endeavor. And God bless America. Thank you.